Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Roundup for Week 11 of the NFL season. Zach Ewing, along with Spencer the Guru Urquhart, back from his well-deserved vacation. I'm back from Pittsburgh, which was not a good fantasy game for anybody. I guess Jawan Johnson. We'll talk. Jawan
Yeah,
Johnson had a
Juwan,
nice day for
sure.
the Saints. Nope. Najee Harris had a good day for the Steelers, but that was about it. So yeah, we won't talk too much about that game. That's for Bayou Bets on Thursday. We can continue to bury the Saints. But as you know, here on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, we are brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars and get your first bet risk-free. You get up to $1,250 back as a free bet if you don't win that first one. Make sure you use promo code NOLAFULL or go to NOLA.com/Caesars. If you don't use the promo, you don't get that bonus. So, make sure you don't just sign up and expect to get the free bet back. Use the promo code NOLAFULL. Make sure you get that. And also, if you are on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for us, or go over there and do it for us. And that way you get updates in your email of everything that we do, including Bayou Bets, Fantasy Roundup, Cashing In with Carville, Datitude. All of it goes on that Bayou Bets YouTube channel. So hit the like button, share button, subscribe button. Help us out as far as that goes. Spencer, while you were off on the weekend, how much you're like at a wedding? Are you checking your fantasy scores on your phone? Were you that guy?
Oh yeah. I was definitely checking the fantasy, and a lot of my other buddies were too, because it was the bachelor trip, so I mean, it wasn't like we were. The wedding didn't happen yet, but yeah, it was. But it was cool though. I had a lot of fun out there, but still stayed in the loop. We actually had a room where we were watching football. We watched a lot of the LSU game on Saturday, and on the way back on Sunday, we had the Red Zone channel on somebody's phone, so still got to keep up.
Yeah, they're not good buddies if you don't keep up with it, I guess. Not for you anyway.
For sure, for
Um,
sure. Yeah, we had a fun time. Everyone was. I mean, not everyone's into football, but a good amount of people were, to where a lot of people, we kind of bounced ideas off each other. A lot of them bet too, so I didn't realize that some of them bet. So we had a good talk about that. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, one thing that was reinforced Sunday, your fantasy stars do not have to win their game. That doesn't mean anything. And we saw that primo example of that was Justin Fields of the Bears, who for the second straight week just had an enormous week, this time in a loss. He also threw a pick six that was crippling to the Bears, by the way, but it doesn't matter in fantasy. I mean, the guy's getting opportunities. He's running the ball. And at this point, he's pretty much a must start.
For sure. And he gets another good matchup this week against the Falcons. So yeah, he might be able to keep this going. And he's been amazing in recent weeks. Kind of stole Zoe's thunder yesterday on Bayou Bets for the final thought. I was like, you know what? Shout out to Justin Fields. He's been carrying me in fantasy lately.
That was her thought. So
Yeah.
the name on here that obviously sticks out is Matt Ryan, who nobody even thought was going to start until Sunday, and he comes out and starts warming up as the starter, and it was all over Twitter. Oh, the Colt Jeff Saturday switched back to Matt Ryan. 22 fantasy points. I mean, I'm sure nobody started him except maybe in Superflex. Well, even in Superflex leagues, you wouldn't know he was the starter. He did have a nice 30-yard run as part of that. I don't know that we expect him to keep that up, but it was good to see that he's still got it, at least in spurts.
Yeah, and I think that just goes to show that Jeff Saturday knows what he's doing, because Matt Ryan wasn't great, but he definitely didn't deserve to get benched in favor of Sam Ellinger, of all people. So I think that now that Saturday's in charge, Ryan might actually be a decent streaming option some weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll continue to talk because bye weeks continue here in week 11. Going back to week 10, weird week for running backs. Jonathan Taylor was the top guy. You see all these guys bunched within a couple of points of each other. Jonathan Taylor was like the 12th highest score. There were no running backs in the top 11. So weird week. Obviously, all these guys productive. Just nobody really went off.
Yeah, no Joe Mixons this week. He was on bye, and nobody picked up the slack. It's good to see Dalvin Cook bounce back. He had been having, I wouldn't say a bad year, but not quite up to standard. But yeah, he had a good one this week. James Conner returned, and they released Eno Benjamin as a result. That was pretty surprising.
Yeah, and Connor had a good day. And the statistical improbability of three guys scoring exactly 23.6. Pretty crazy.
For
And then
sure, for sure.
Saquon was right behind him. Saquon, I think he had just a terrific matchup against the Texans and he got a ton of touches. I mean, I think he had 30 touches in that
Yeah,
game,
I think
but
yeah.
just didn't only found the end zone once. Good week, but not the smash week that a lot of us were expecting.
Yeah, he yeah, 35 carries. I think yeah, he should have been the number one, but he didn't find the end zone quite enough.
Yep, yep. Uh, Wide receivers, it was a different story. A couple of really big weeks. In fact, in the same game, C.D. Lamb and Christian Watson went off. It was like dueling big catches, dueling touchdowns, and then Justin Jefferson made maybe the greatest catch that we've ever seen in the NFL as part of his big day.
Yeah, that was man, that was the game of the year there, Bills Vikings, and Jettis Jefferson's definitely showing that he's they say big time players make big time plays, and he's definitely showing that. And then yeah, Christian Watson, man, what a breakout there. We'll get to him later on waiver wires, but he looks like the real deal. He's somebody that if the Saints wouldn't have gotten Olave, he was to me the next best option as far as like a true difference maker. And so yeah, that was fun to watch for sure.
And then Nick Westbrook-Ikine of the Titans. We've been waiting for a Tennessee Titan to show up in the wide receiver list all year, and finally did. It wasn't the guy we expected.
Right, yeah, Trey Burks was back. He caught a few passes, but yeah, NWI that stole the show.
On the tight end list, Cole Kmet for the second straight week as your number one scoring tight end. Is he a tight end one in your eyes?
I think so, as much as I hate to say it, because he was somebody that I actually kind of liked before the draft, but I don't have any more shares of him because I cut him everywhere. He was always in the you gotta go early on because he did nothing to start the year. For now, he's picking up and showing that he's got potential, and in that offense without many reliable receivers, it's kind of like the Ravens, to where like Mark Andrews a lot of times ends up being the go-to because they have a lack of receivers. So I'm not saying Komet's Mark Andrews, but yeah, I think he's a tight end one moving forward.
Yeah, it feels like in the last month or so, the Bears have, with Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson's a good comparison with the Ravens because it's not that these guys can't be good passers, but they're not quite as developed there as a lot of other young players. And then they don't have the receivers either, is the big part of that. And so they've simplified it to where it's, hey, dump off to the tight end. If he's not there, your receivers aren't beating anybody one on one, just go, just run. And obviously, it's worked really well for Fields. And that's a good segue into your star of the week, which for this, I think I picked him last week. But how can you not after a week like that?
Yeah, for sure. What a week by Fields yet again, just showing that he's definitely a QB one moving forward. He's a mobile quarterback that's not showing any signs of letting up. As long as he's healthy, you got to start him. And I know he's been taking advantage of soft matchups, but with that much of a rushing ceiling, to me, he's pretty much a must start no matter who he's playing.
All right, let me ask you this because Justin Fields 39.38 points is the third best score by a quarterback this year. Um, he had the best score by a quarterback last week at 42 and change. And I'm trying to think who had the second best, but it was just barely better than this. It was 39.42 or something. So he's almost had the top two scores of any quarterback all year long. So when you're ranking quarterbacks, um, where do you? I mean, who is he still behind? He's probably still behind Allen and Mahomes. Who else?
Yeah, Allen Mahomes, probably still behind Lamar Jackson. Against Lamar Jackson's, they're similar, but Lamar, I'd still probably go with him, being that he's done it more, and it just he's more trustworthy, because he's got more of a sample size to go off of. And I'd probably still put Burrow over him just because Burrow is such a prolific passer and has been very strong as of late. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Allen, Mahomes,
Jalen
Lamar,
Hurts.
Burrow. Yeah, and I guess still Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I'd still say Jalen Hurts. And honestly, that'd probably be it because I want to say Justin Herbert, but the way he's been playing lately, I can't say him. And there's really nobody else that comes to mind. I mean, Dak Prescott, no. Kirk Cousins, no. Aaron Rodgers, no. Kyler Murray, no. I mean, the way he missed last week and hadn't
Geno
been
Smith. I
that
mean,
great. Yeah,
this is the
no.
world we're in. Yeah.
Yeah, Geno Smith. I mean, not Brady, not trying to think the AFC, not Trevor Lawrence, not Tua. Maybe Tua would be similar to Fields, I'd say, because Tua's been
Yeah.
throwing so much.
But I mean, I think the point is Fields is at least QB5, QB6 right now. I mean, if not better. I mean, I think you could make a legitimate argument for him over a Burrow or even a Lamar Jackson. I mean, the way he's running now, could he get hurt? Yes, I have a league where I have Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields, um, and may try to swing a trade. But at the same time, I'm pretty deep everywhere else. Running quarterbacks get hurt, so I may just hang on to both of them, and that way, come playoff time, I'll have one who's healthy. I hope, and use that strategy. So. Well, Spencer, my star
Yep.
of the week is CeeDee Lamb of the Cowboys. We've been kind of waiting for this. Obviously, Dak Prescott was out for quite a while, but we've been waiting for CeeDee's breakout game. I actually had a ticket at Caesars for him to lead the league in receiving yards before the season. That's not going to happen with the way Tyreek Hill's going off, but we finally saw what CeeDee Lamb was capable of. 11 catches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, just looked dominant.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, speaking of leading the league in receiving, I'm hoping either Jefferson or Diggs does it because I got tickets on them. So I know Tyreek's been great, but I'm hoping one of them can do it. But yeah, shout out to CD. He had a humongous week, and and it's just because he's the only guy they got. He's the only game in town over there outside of Schultz.
And that was my thinking when I bet him before the season is that they're going to have to now when Dak went out for 6 weeks that they're not going to throw as much and it kind of went out. So if you have any questions or comments for us for Spencer, drop them in the YouTube or Facebook comments. If you're watching on Twitter, we won't be able to see those live. So hop on over to the Bayou Bets YouTube page if you would like to leave a comment and give us a like, give us a thumbs up while you're over there if you don't mind. Wrapping up week 10 with the Listener League standings. Spencer, you keep winning, and it doesn't seem to make any difference. You can't make up ground on those top four.
I mean, I made up a little bit of ground on Minoka and Bama. They both lost, so yeah, you keep winning too. So it's 2 games back, but not out. I looked at my team and got a stacked team, man. That Guru squad number 16. We got Fields at QB, McCaffrey, Chubb, and Saquon at running back. Receivers a tad weak, but still pretty good. Got Michael Pittman and Ayuk, and then Schultz at tight end. I feel like this team can make a push. So Minoka, Bama, and even you, Zach. I know you've been trending up, but y'all better watch out. This team's on the
All right.
rise.
All right. 5 weeks left. And by the way, this week I play Bama. And so one of us has to lose. And I believe you played Minoka. So I think,
Ooh,
if you
big
could
week, yeah.
win, all of a sudden you're only a game out from two different people for that spot. So could get interesting in the Listener League. Of course, the top listener finisher gets the 2 tickets to Saints Panthers at the end of the season. Right now, again, shout out to Bucktown, 10-0,
Oh my
and
God.
the highest scorer in the league. No, I mean, this is not a fluke, 10-0. I mean, obviously you have to have a little bit of luck to never lose, but he's the highest scorer in the league by 65 points, so it's not a fluke.
Yeah, I think his little run might be coming to an end though, because I'm pretty sure he has Cooper Cup.
Yep, and that's a big one, and we should talk about that one as well, especially as we move into week 11. Cooper Cup ankle surgery, out at least 4 weeks. He was on IR. Chances are longer than that, Spencer, especially if the Rams fall out of it. They're not going to rush him back. So I could certainly see Cooper Cup being out maybe for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I have a bad feeling that they're just gonna have to shut him down because if you're not in it, there's no point in risking back. I mean, he's a franchise type player. He's one of those kind of players that if you're out of it, you shut him down. So probably what's going to happen. I wouldn't drop him yet, though, in the off chance they could start winning because their defense is pretty good. Like, even if their offense stinks, like, I mean, if they beat the Saints this weekend and could get on a little run, like, they could maybe claw their way back, but I have a gut feeling that he's probably done.
Yeah, I mean, there are playoff spots to be had in the NFC. If unless you believe the Giants are going to keep winning, they're 7-2. I think they're going to start to lose some games. I don't think they're that good. Um, there are wild card spots to be had. Rams catching the 49ers or Seahawks may be out of the question. But yeah, that Rams Saints game on Sunday, I think both of those teams are probably cooked. the loser is almost definitely cooked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, if you're almost, you get the final nail in the coffin, like, type thing, and the NFL is one of those until you're truly buried, like, you always have a sliver of hope, but I feel like,
Hmm.
yeah, the loser of that'll be the final nail.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the Saints already 3-7. I mean, they may have already suffered their final nail last week. Only thing keeping them in it is that the Bucks lead the division at 5-5. So we'll talk more about that on Bayou Bets on Thursday at 4 o'clock. But for now, let's move on to Week 11 in the fantasy world. It is time, Spencer, and I can't believe it took us this long to talk about this. Deshaun Watson is back at practice for the Browns, and you say go get him now.
Yeah, to me, you have to because if you don't, you're not going to get him because people are going to see that he's back at practice, see that he's only 2 weeks out. They had their bye week already, so this is the time to get him. You know, he barely made the threshold. He's there's almost. I mean, people have been holding him all year. I mean, I wouldn't have recommended that, being that even when he does come back, I'm not sure how effective he'll be. But to me, he's definitely worth taking a flyer on because we all knew before the suspension and all that he was an elite quarterback, and that's a pretty solid offense. Their defense stinks, but they've been putting up points fairly well this year, so I think he's worth a shot.
And then the rest of this list, Rashad White appears to be the number one running back in Tampa Bay. And then we talked about Christian Watson and his breakout. You Cooper Cup owners, that's boy, it's going to be tough to get him, but he's the name you probably want to target.
Yeah, blow your fab budget if you're in a fab league. If you've been holding out for something, like if you need something, like if you're a cup manager that really needs some like a game changer, yeah, just spend it all. If you have $100 left, just put the whole 100 on a Watson type because he's another one that could be a difference maker. Because I watched the most of that game Sunday afternoon with Packers Cowboys. I had gotten back for it, and Aaron Rodgers and Watson, that looked like a scary connection. It looked like I don't know if I could sound like I'm jumping the gun here, but kind of like the way kind of connection he had with Devontae Adams, like that just kind of like game changing connection, like willed their
Yeah,
way
that
to the win over a solid Dallas team. So I'm not saying he's the next Devontae, but I am saying he's definitely worth a pickup
and
for moving forward.
and then tight end. This one's interesting to me too. Juwan Johnson gets the Saints touchdown. Um, it's obviously still splitting time with both Adam Troutman and Taysom Hill at tight end, and so it's a tough one. But he does seem to be getting the targets, and as we know, tight end after about the top 6 or 7 guys gets real dreary. Dallas Goddard out for a while, so there may be some people looking for a tight end as well.
Yep, Zach Ertz also out for the season. Man, a lot of bad injuries this week. Shoot, that's just tough. You know, yeah, Jawan's one to watch. Foster Moreau, another name to monitor. I looked at this is actually I saw it today about how like what they call it, like empty points, like points that were left on the table. And Moreau, I think it was he like dropped a touchdown or something, or like if he'd have caught that, he'd have had a lot bigger week, and he had seen a lot of targets because outside of Devontae Adams, they don't really have any reliable targets. Renfro and Waller are both done, so I'm thinking that Moreau probably a little bit safer floor, but Johnson, I mean, Jawan Johnson's a freak athlete. Like I'm thinking if he keeps staying involved, he actually has a fairly decent ceiling, especially if Jameis Winston takes back over.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens if Jameis comes back Sunday. Of course, we're keeping our eye on that as well. Not a recommended ad in anything but a super flex league, but it could affect the Saints receivers usage. So that'll be interesting. To make room for those guys, Spencer, who's got to go?
Right. Yeah. The Derek Carr definitely has to go. I mean, he is one I'd mentioned a few weeks ago, but I thought he'd do better this week. You know, I thought this would be a good get right spot for him against a Colts team that have been going through all kind of turbulation, but didn't work out. Looked broken in that press conference because tough to watch there. I mean, it shows. I mean, I'll give him that. He cares. I mean, he's just looked defeated though. To me, you got to move on for fantasy. Has a tough matchup this week against Denver, and then Eno Benjamin's an obvious one. He got released by the Cardinals, so there's no need to keep him around. Robert Woods just doesn't seem to have the chemistry with Tannehill. And Tannehill is looking more toward Westbrook, Akine, and Burke, so it's safe to move on from Woods. And then Evan Ingram, man, the Jags are just too many mouths to feed over there.
Yep, interesting. So you obviously need to make room if you want to pick guys up. Those are ones we see now. A lot of you will be adding IR guys. Ertz is out for the year, but if you have Goddard, he may be back later, so worth using an IR spot on him. Um, we Cooper Cup probably IR at this point, Spencer. If you got a spot, I mean, just on the off chance he's back for the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Derrick Henry thing last year, and Henry didn't end up quite coming back. But it's one of those things to me. You had to keep him stashed just in case, because when a guy like that plays, it's like they're a must start, and you'd hate to see your competition get a hold of them.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And you just know it's one of those things where if I drop him, he's going to come back. If I hold on to him, he won't come back. But at least nobody else has him. You play that game. So if you have the IR spot, I would use it on him for sure. And even if you don't, unless there's nobody else to drop, you're probably holding Cup right now just to see, at least for a few weeks, to see if there's a chance he comes back. Let's move on to DFS in Week 11. I have some values for you. So does Spencer. I could see a real shootout at the Meadowlands this week. Giants, Lions. I like a lot of guys on both of those teams. Daniel Jones at 5,700. I mean, he's not Justin Fields, but Daniel Jones is mobile, and we saw what Fields just did to the Lions. Jones could rack up some rushing yards. I think this could be a get right spot for him. He's been kind of had a couple of bad games in a row, but I could see that coming. Kenyon Drake of the Ravens. It finally looks like we kind of know who RB1 in Baltimore is, and they've got a great matchup against Carolina. Drake ran all over the Saints a couple of weeks ago, coming off the bye week. And then from last name to first name, Drake London of the Falcons has kind of become Mariota's go-to target. That could be another shootout, Falcons Bears, and so you get him for just 5,100 there. And then Broncos tight end Greg Dulcich, he had a bad week last week, but he's still getting quite a few targets. Broncos get the Raiders, and he's really shown that he can do well after the catch, that Russell Wilson doesn't mind throwing to him, and so a good spot for him there too.
He didn't do much last week, but this is a good get right spot for him against the Raiders. And as we'll see in mine, I'm feeling Denver too this week.
And the great thing about a guy like Dulcich is when he has a bad week, everyone else is going to pivot off of the guy. And
Yeah.
so if you're spending only 3,800 for him and everybody else spends up for, all of a sudden now you have differentiated yourself, a guy who could have a big week, and you have a little more money to spend on the other positions. Your DFS values this week, Spencer?
Yeah, I hate to do it, but man,
The Rust Bust.
Yeah, Broncos country, let's ride. Yeah, I had to do it this week because it's just he's got no choice but to ride this week. You're going against the freaking Raiders, who just look broken, man. Josh McDaniels just says, I mean, they literally lost 24-0 to the Saints.
Broken is such a good word for it, Spencer. It really, I mean, I actually like running backs against them, and we'll talk about that in a second. But they just have guys who don't care, and I think that's what had Derek Carr so upset. But yeah, it's a beautiful spot to target people.
Yeah, for sure. And then Devin Singletary, I think this is a good spot for him because Josh Allen, I know he did his thing against the Vikings, even though they lost. Like he still played fairly well, even though he was hurt. But that's the thing. If the Bills have their choice, they don't want Allen right now to have to do as much as normal because they're trying to preserve him for the playoffs. They don't want him to really mess up that elbow to where he ends up out for a while. So I'm thinking they lean on Singletary this week and that he could have a pretty good week. Nice value there at 5,800. And then Pat Freiermuth is somebody that he hadn't really broken out yet, but I'm thinking this could be a good spot for him. They're playing the Bengals. He did pretty well against them in week 1. So I'm thinking this might be his breakout week.
And speaking of Singletary, by the way, there is snow in the forecast in Buffalo this weekend, and potentially a lot of snow. And so fire up the running backs in that one. I mean, obviously you're always going to start Nick Chubb, but he might be worth paying up for. And yeah, Devin Singletary, a great spot. Have a league where I have him and I have both Lions running backs, and it's always been difficult. Okay, do I start Swift? Is this a week Swift starts to get more carries over Jamal Williams? I may just start Singletary this week because when you're in a timeshare situation, neither guy can go real big, and I think Singletary might.
For sure, yeah, I'm thinking he will because I don't know, like Hines and Cook, or neither of them have really done much. So, and especially with the snow, like Singletary is definitely the one they lean on early downs.
And keep an eye on the forecast. It could obviously change, But right now, as we talk on Tuesday afternoon, it's supposed to be snow in Buffalo this weekend. It could be a lot of snow. So could be good for the running games. Our sleepers for week 11 to finish up, Nico Collins of the Texans.
Yeah, I like him. They're going against the Commanders, I believe, who, they did good last night, but throughout the year, they've been kind of shaky against wide
Letdown spot.
receivers. And, what was that?
The Commanders are in just a classic letdown spot, too. Short
Yeah.
week, huge win, going on the road. Look out.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And with Brandon Cooks kind of being a malcontent, I'm thinking that they'll start to lean more on their younger guys. Because, Brandon Cooks, he is in the future. That's a team that's in an obvious rebuild mode. So I'm thinking they continue to feed Collins, and he should do pretty well because the Commanders, I think they put all their eggs in the beating the Eagles type thing. Like their basket was kind of they just played way over their head last night. So I'm thinking that they come back to earth this week, especially their secondary, which normally stinks, but they did good last night.
And then my sleeper, as you saw, I took Melvin Gordon the third. We talked about the Broncos. When a team, I don't want to use the word quits because not every player on the team is going to quit. I'm not disrespecting those guys, but as a team, the Raiders look broken. They look unmotivated. They look resigned to the fact that Josh McDaniels is going to be there. He's got a big buyout. Mark Davis may not be paying it until the offseason. They're basically stuck. They're 2-7. It feels like the same situation, but maybe even worse.
Yeah.
And so I just, I think the first thing that's going to go, especially when the weather gets cold and you're in high altitude and everything, you're on the road, Denver's going to pound the rock, man. And I know there's a little bit of a concern with Latavius Murray there.
And Chase Edmonds
and Chase Edmonds is there now. But Melvin Gordon's still getting a lion's share of the carries, and he's also the one guy they use in the passing game. So I do like Melvin Gordon the third there.
For sure. Yeah,
All
he
right.
could. He could. But it's just it. All right, go ahead.
Go ahead, Spencer.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say with the committee, it just kind of makes me nervous. I'm thinking Latavius is a former Raider. Maybe he'll be, I think it's been a while since he played there. They may be like a slight revenge narrative, but it's just with Edmonds there, man. If it wasn't for that, I'd be more in favor of Gordon. But with a three-headed committee, it just kind of makes me nervous. That's why I preferred the passing game, because at least with that, we know Sutton's gonna be heavily involved, especially if Judy's out, which it's looking like Judy might end up out, considering he had to leave the game early last week.
Yeah, so we're targeting the Broncos all over the place.
Yes.
That's a scary sentence, but we're going to try it. A lot of interesting stuff going on between injuries, bye weeks, guys popping off like Christian Watson. We didn't expect Deshaun Watson coming back for the Browns in just one more week. No, two more weeks, I think.
2 more. Yeah, 2 more.
Yeah, 2 more weeks.
Against
It's
the
a game
Texans.
against the Texans, against his old team. Going to be very, very interesting to see how that one comes out. But as we head into week 11, Spencer, what is your final thought for fantasy football?
Oh, man, I would say just, for those, I know a lot of trade deadlines came and went, but I know there are still a lot out there. So I would say try to target running backs for the stretch, like a buddy of mine I podcast with, because I calls them winter backs, like running backs that really thrive when the weather gets cold. Like you had mentioned, Zach, about the snow in Buffalo potentially. Like make sure your running backs are good for the stretch, because a lot of times they can end up being the difference makers for those that been leaning on the receivers all year. But when the weather gets bad, sometimes those guys don't come through.
Absolutely. He's Spencer the Guru. You can find him on Twitter or Instagram and ask questions throughout the week. And we will be back at 2 o'clock next Tuesday for more Fantasy Roundup Week 12 edition. In the meantime, Jim Derry's got Datitude on Thursday and Friday mornings, and we've got Bayou Bets live at 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. And we will talk to you guys then. We'll talk Saints-Rams, little LSU, looking ahead to the SEC championship game. Also get into some World Cup, which starts on Sunday, the fantasy football. That's going to be a lot of fun, by the way. I don't even care. Most people who aren't even soccer fans will get into the World Cup a little bit.
Yeah, I'll watch it. A buddy of mine, the one he went on the trip with, he's super into soccer. So I might have to give it a shot, because I read about some of the teams. should be a pretty competitive field. So I'll have to check it out.
It'll be fantastic. That starts Sunday, so we'll talk a little bit about that on Thursday's Bayou Bets as well. We'll see you then, everybody. Thanks for watching. This has been the Fantasy Roundup for Spencer the Guru and Zach Ewing. We'll see you next time.